So I'll go ahead and get started. Let me just close the door here. All right, let me just upload my screen. All right, so we want to welcome everyone to Environmental Fridays. This is season 5, Environmental Fridays. It is personal. And if you would like to see the rest of our schedule for actually the entire school year, both this fall, this semester, as well as spring semester, we have a really good lineup of speakers, including our speaker today. You could click on that link, or you could use the QR code, and that will get you to the schedule. So yes, we want to welcome you all to this season 5 and to today's presentation. One of the things that I've been focusing on this season 5 is this iconic photo of our Earth. It was taken by an Apollo astronaut, and it's got a name. It's called Earthrise. In the foreground, you could see the moon, and in the background, you can see the blue planet, our home, the Earth. If you would like to listen to an interview of the photographer, the astronaut who took this picture, you could again zoom in onto the QR code, and that will take you to a YouTube video of him being interviewed. So that should be a nice thing to check out. It's about 5 to 10 minutes. I can't remember the exact time. But one of the things I want to just have a little feedback on from you guys, you could unmute, is what type of feelings does this photograph evoke for you? What does this make you feel, this iconic photo? Anyone could unmute and say what you think or how you feel.
Okay, well, I can go first. So for me, it's similar to my analogy of that the earth is a bubble and we're all contained in this very small space relative to the entire universe. So we should take care of it because this is the only one that we have, and it is so small and fragile.
That's right. That's right. Any more thoughts? Okay, I guess people are kind of shy about sharing their thoughts. For me, one of the things that I see is that it's not clearly visible on this photo of national boundaries. We might be able to see continents and stuff, but national boundaries we don't see. At least I don't see it very clearly. And that tells me that all of the issues that we face in the environment, including biodiversity loss, pollution, and climate change, or more importantly, climate crisis, is something that we are all affected with. It's global, and it does not matter where you live on the earth. It affects all of us. So those are some of the thoughts that this evokes for me. So at this point, I will go ahead and introduce our speaker. Katrina Roberts is our speaker today. And I think I've been knowing her now for about a year and a half, something like that. And she's been a supporter of Environmental Fridays. She has been involved with environmental organization and environmental work for a long time now. She'll probably tell us more about that. And I've sort of labeled her, give her a title based on what I've read about her as an environmental edutainer. And what that tries to capture is that she tries to incorporate and does, not just tries, but does incorporate the environment into art and other creative sort of endeavors. And so that's a really good way, I think, to get the message out, the awareness and the education out to the general public, is to make it fun yet educational. And so in her presentation today, we will see some examples of that. Thank you, Katrina, for being our speaker today. So you could go ahead now. I will stop sharing and you could go ahead now and upload your PowerPoint.
Thank you so much. So I'm going to be sharing my screen. And hopefully we can go full screen. So I hope everyone is seeing my little animation. And thank you again so much for the opportunity to present to you all today with my little corner of the internet that I call Katrina's Marine-Minded Space. So my name is Katrina Khan Roberts. I'm based in Trinidad and Tobago in the Caribbean. And I've actually been advocating and studying the environment for professionally about 15 years. I started off doing youth things with the environment. I always was, drawn to the ocean, and I love the mermaids. So as a child, I, got to go to the beach a lot because we do live on small island developing state. And it's just been a really great journey so far. And I wanted to thank Environmental Fridays for giving me the opportunity. So I know you all saw this photo in the ad. This is me as the character Katrina, the Trinidad and Tobago mermaid. I named myself the Trinidad and Tobago mermaid. And my aim is to bring together mermaids as well as ocean literacy. So my tagline is, let's learn about the ocean and how to protect it. And the reason that I came up with this mermaid character is because who wouldn't want to learn about the ocean from a mermaid? A mermaid is kind of the personification of the ocean. So I always felt like it was important to have something that's a little bit different, because even though we are so surrounded by this ocean, we still have a disconnect where we're not using it to its fullest potential and just degrading it with our own extraction of its resources over time. So I have a little bit of me that is not mermaid related. So I'm actually an environmental professional, tourism professional. I have a lot of the work that I've done prior to Katrina here. Like I said, I've been working since I was 19 in some youth environmental organizations, such as the Caribbean Youth Environmental Health Network, the Trinidad and Tobago Field Naturalist Club, and most recently, my work has been with climate change, so the Caribbean Climate Network. And so, like I said, mermaids are the embodiment of the sea. And as a child, I don't know what it was, but I was just so obsessed. Like, you can ask my parents. I was so obsessed with mermaids. I used to draw them. I used to think I was one and pretend to be one. And I brought it together when the pandemic happened, because I thought, what, I'm not able to do the things that I want to do. So I'm going to make this new thing because I hadn't seen anything like it before. So if a mermaid visited you as a child and told you about protecting the ocean, would you not remember that? Like I just kept thinking, so I actually have my tail here with me. I know you're probably expecting me to put the tail on, but no, I won't be doing that today. So this is actually the tail. It's a spandex. This is the more affordable mermaid, equipment, and it's a monofin. So I can actually swim. And when I go to the beach and the kids see me and they're either scared or they're like really, really attracted to it, and they would listen to what I say. So that's one of the things. So ocean literacy, the concept is to integrate science into education. And my whole thing is that if it is that we want to educate our public to make, decisions, to have our decision makers make the right decision, we have to have science as the foundation. So that is something that is often not, accessible to the public. A lot of people don't have that affinity to, say, okay, I want to learn more about this science. I want to learn more about the current research. And so I felt like if ocean literacy with this movie character would be that bridge to allow people to understand a little bit more, We need to make socially responsible decisions because, again, just like the photo in the beginning, we have one fragile planet. So ocean literacy is an understanding of the ocean's influence on you and your influence on the ocean. Isn't that interesting? It's not something that has been talked about a lot, but the ocean is super, super important. So as we go along, I'm actually going to take you through one of the educational routes that I prepared to bring ocean literacy to the audience, right? So the goals of my programming is to improve the understanding of the importance of ocean to humankind, because of course we can only speak human to human, to enhance communication about the ocean in a meaningful way, and to develop the ability to make informed and responsible decisions regarding the ocean and its resources. So of course we're wondering now, well, why is the ocean so important? If you're a young child in school, you're like, yeah, I go to the beach, I go and I relax at the seaside. My cousins or aunts and uncles probably go fishing, things like that. So to connect the real gravity of the importance of the ocean for that young child, I feel is going to map out the rest of the way that they live their lives, as well as, of course, their interaction with the environment around them. But we will realize as we go along how important the ocean is specifically. I mean, I advocate for everything, climate, everything, but in this regard, for Katrina, I focus on the ocean. And I think it's really important that the education system involves holistic education about our environment and not just in isolated ways, but maybe in a cohesive way so that the children will remember better. We can't forget that different children learn in different ways. So if we don't give that variety, we're going to end up leaving some kids behind. So the Earth has one big ocean with many features. This is one of the major takeaways. If you look at that globe spinning in the background, all of the water is connected. And that is one thing that we don't notice and we don't always realize, is that the Earth is literally one big ocean. Most of the world is covered by water, and it's salt water. So it relates a little bit to our drinking water and our availability of water as a natural resource. So that's a whole other question that we can go down. So it's important then to know that everything is connected. And the great thing about this one big ocean is that it has the capacity to change. And then the thing is that humans have been influencing this one big ocean. So again, there's so many different aspects of the ocean that we just don't understand. The next thing is that the ocean has made the Earth habitable, right? So did you know that the ocean has actually been the primary reason why we can breathe in this atmosphere? Because if you look at the timeline of the Earth, it has not been able to have life that we know it for very long, if you look at the expanse of time that the Earth has existed. So the microorganisms and stuff that live in the ocean are basically what photosynthesize and create our livable world. The ocean is a major influence on climate and weather. So climate is one of the big issues of our current day. It's one of the things that I lobby for a lot because we don't understand that the impacts going forward with all this heat and energy that is going to be trapped in this ocean, the ocean expanding because of this heat. We are probably not feeling it as much as we could be feeling it because the ocean is such a great regulator of this heat energy that's coming into our system from the sun, and then of course from our own human activities, taking the carbon that was trapped in the earth as fossil fuels, for example. And now humans are burning these fossil fuels and bringing them into the atmosphere as emissions. And the ocean is regulating all of this in the carbon cycle. So another thing, let's move on before I get too heavy. The ocean supports a great diversity of life and ecosystems. It's amazing that we have not discovered even, I think they said, what, 70% of the ocean is unexplored. And every single day, we are discovering new life forms in the deep sea, wherever people can visit, because of course we know that these expeditions are very expensive. Imagine that we know more about our moon and some other planets than we do about our own oceans on this planet. So we do have to remember that while we are here on this planet, we have to remember that our impact on this life that we don't know exists is happening every day. So that's something really important to think about as well. And of course, we know we have the hallmark species, so we have to think about those as well. So the ocean and life in the ocean shape the features of the earth. So that is important. A lot of the times that we, see these beautiful imagery, human art and expression is oftentimes influenced and inspired by the ocean. The ocean has eroded away beautiful landscapes. It has deposited sand on lovely beaches. The vastness of the open ocean, the terror of a hurricane whipping that water into a frenzy. It's amazing the things that the ocean has done for us and continues to be in shaping our world. Yeah, so it's important that we just remember the power of the ocean as well, over time to create entire coastlines with different environments. And of course, that humans and the ocean are inextricably connected. We know from human history that, life forms came out of the ocean and we have all changed over time in existence with our environment. We know that humans had our main source of food come from fish, which were from the ocean as well. We are mostly coastal animals, I guess you can call ourselves. Well, we settle near the coastline because there's so many resources there. It's also a great place for, other resources. We have a lot of marine oil and gas. There's so much that the ocean can do for us. There's seaweed, there's life under there that we eat or use as medication. It impacts everything about us, yet we don't always see that it does that. Then, as I discussed earlier, the ocean is largely unexplored. So I talk a lot about Professor Judith Rubin, who not so recently, but still very recently in recent times, has done one of the first explorations of the deep sea in Trinidad and Tobago, because there's lots of places in this world that have not been discovered yet because of that lack of finance to get these expeditions going. It's very expensive to go to the deep sea, and then it takes years because there's so much that was collected in terms of the data that it takes years to find what exactly was seen and observed on that one dive. So it's really interesting how many new species are coming about every day. I think I read somewhere recently, giant mussels at these vents where there's no oxygen, and linkages to, how life formed, and it's such a vast, unknown. And we continue to not know because we just don't have the capacity to go and see all of it. And for us to make a positive difference and become ocean literate, we do have to do a couple of things. So I have my little guy studying here because we can only study what we know as humans as well. So as much as we can, we have to make sure that we are aware of the current data and science behind everything. So we need to learn about ocean issues from multiple bodies of knowledge. We need to identify and understand personal as well as other perspectives. And we have to apply decision-making processes to complex issues that affect personal, community, and global well-being. That is a lot, but it is true because the average person will not understand that their everyday actions do impact the ocean, from the water and whatever else we pour down the drains. They all flow all the way out to the sea. If you think about the amplification, having so many different people having that same impact at the same time. Then you have the larger corporations that are also impacting the ocean, either by, the effluents, and there's so much that the ocean is absorbing from humans. So it's good to have a different perspective. And so I listed a couple perspectives here that I think are very important, because if we don't try to look at things from other perspectives, we're only going to see so much. So the scientific perspective, we have to make sure that people understand the way it works, what is going on there, what we don't know, what we're going to be finding out more about. The historical perspective, we know that in previous times there was much planning being done. There was a lot of just, extraction without thinking about the long term. The geographic perspective, just, basically physically what is there, what is happening, and how we're going to protect it. The gender equality perspective, because I know I can talk a little bit later about what that means for me specifically. The value perspective, oops, I'm going to put you back. The cultural perspective, so I mean, a lot of different religious, a lot of different communities see the ocean in different ways. And of course, the sustainability perspective, because we want to make sure that people are seeing what is actually there. So all of these words here are what I know there are more associated with the ocean from my perspective. I know it gives food, climate, regulation, minerals, atmosphere, medicine, recreation, mental health. Because for me, I love the ocean. I see it and I'm stress-free. Water, inspiration, livelihoods, and transportation. Now, transportation is something very important for the Caribbean region. And the big question now is, how do we protect those things that the ocean is supplying for us? Yeah. Protecting it means that it will be there in the long term, and then for future generations to also be able to derive those positives from it. Yes. So we have to make sure that we are doing what we're doing right now, making sure that we have our current needs met, but then also remembering that sustainability, we have to have it hopefully in the same or better condition for future generations. So I have a few steps that I try to impart on my younger audience when I do speak to them. Is to learn first about the ocean and how to protect it. Because learning, the information is there, but if it is that you don't understand it, you don't consume it, there's no way that you can then put it into the behaviors that you're going to have in everyday life. So it's a simple thing. Like when I was little, I would watch Captain Planet and learn about how things were affecting the environment from a pollution perspective. So that's where my whole educational entertainment came about as well. Then we have taking personal actions. Now, I'm not an advocate for saying that we are the issue all the time. I can't say that our normal everyday activities are on, it's not about you alone, it's about the community at large. But we do have an opportunity with each other to share good practices and hopefully make a change that way as well. And then step 3 is to advocate for local, national, and regional action. Because if we come together as a community and we all make a change together, that is where overall change will be seen and felt by the ocean. So it's all about analysis, seeing where we're at, and yes. So this is just a little bit about me, specifically with my edutainment work. So you can see I have books that I've written for different age groups. And I actually go out to the beaches in the tail to make sure that, you know, I have that visibility. And of course, interact with the public, make sure that the kids, you know, could ask their questions. Yes, I do get a lot of mermaid questions, but this was the Youth Awards last year. So I'm actually the National Youth Award for winner for 2022 in Trinidad and Tobago for my work in the environment. And personally, it's the interest of the youth. So yes, people like what I'm doing, but the approval of the decision makers. So my challenges with Katrina have been funding, approval, support, time, access, interest, and sustainability. So I can talk about those things later, but I persevered. And when I do get the opportunity to speak to these young people, so this is my son on my lap and helping me with these little bioplastic starfish, because, you know, children are very tactile and they want to see and hear and understand and touch. And so I try my very best to continue going out there. I try to be sustainable by starting my own business as well with Katrina as a brand to still continue the Ocean Literacy Week. And so I want to leave you with follow your dreams as ethically and sustainably as possible, because you don't know your impact on the world unless you put your feet or your fins out there. So thank you all so very much. I actually just recently published my last Katrina as this character, the cartoon character. It's on Amazon. So you can see these are the 3 Katrina books. It starts off with Katrina's ABCs, the mini marine biologist alphabet, then the mini marine biologist storybook, which is for ages like 3 and up, and then the activity book, which is like experiments and recipes. And then my first book was the guidebook, the mini marine biologist guidebook. And it was basically to ensure that, you know, children had what they needed to understand the like foundation of marine biology. So thank you again so much. I'm going to take some questions now, and I can talk a little bit more about exactly how, like, you know, the work is done if you want to know about that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Katrina. That was really good. We really enjoy listening to you and the passion that you bring to your work in the environment and to educating our young ones about specifically the ocean literacy. So what I'd like to do is ask a couple of questions, and hopefully others will chime in as well with questions you may have. So how active are you? For example, do you have like a schedule of schools or places that you would be? How is that done? How do you work with the schools or out in the public?
Great. So thanks so much. So basically, I published my first book in 2020. It was self-published through Amazon. I worked on that book for 2 years. So during that time, I prepared marketing material, firstly to get the books into bookstores, and preparing proposals through different ministries in Trinidad and Tobago, through the Ministry of Education, because of course you have to get approvals first before you can get into the schools, or the principals would allow you into the schools. Then when that failed the first time, the ministry said, they cannot give approval at this time. I then went through our National Information System, NALIS. I got the First Time Author Award in 2021. And from there, the social media started to build, where people understood that, okay, this is an author with a scientific background. It's not just a random person who's coming out here with a mermaid tale saying, learn about the ocean and how to protect it. And from there, I started to get requests. Now, unfortunately, because I was not able, over the years, I've asked multiple times, I've not been able to get the Ministry of Education's approval for whatever reason. I don't know if it's just that they think that I'm going to turn up in the school in the mermaid tail or what. But I persevered whenever a teacher asked me to come. And if the principal allowed me to come to speak about the books, to read from my books or anything like that, that is how it worked out so far. And then I also partnered with summer camps, so vacation camps. That was mainly where I was able to interact with these children, where I was invited by the people who were organizing the camps, if they were teachers, if they were other educational service providers. And that was mainly where I did that work. I also did a lot of public appearances on the public beaches. Even though I wrote to the different authorities saying, hi, I'm coming on this day. I sought funding from, like, for example, the Ministry of Tourism. That did not work out because apparently our Ministry of Tourism does manage certain beaches in Trinidad. I asked certain private beaches, hotels, you name it, I've written to everyone. And most of the time it's either no answer or sorry, we cannot give you approval at this time. So that's where I actually started uploading things to YouTube. I started doing lives on Facebook, Instagram. Twitter has actually been good so far, as well as TikTok. So social media has been a bit of help. And then of course we know this year the Little Mermaid came out, the Disney movie. So that was also an avenue I thought would have worked, but I just was not able to secure any of the public appearances that I would have liked to have to speak about the ocean. I thought of so many different ways that it could have been in parallel, and it never worked out. So again, the work that I'm doing is purely wherever people allow me to be, I will be there.
So in the case of public beaches, I'm thinking that you really don't need permission, right, for public beaches. And
Sometimes
what
you
you could
do.
do for public beaches,
If they are managed by the Ministry of Tourism to have any kind of event, I guess,
well,
or if
but
it's like recorded,
that's what
yes,
I'm saying though, is like, because anybody basically could walk up on a beach and just, go to the beach. So
yeah,
you go to the beach, you have maybe someone to videotape you. You could live stream from the beach without permission, right?
yeah.
You
I
ex-
tried it once.
okay.
I did,
Have
yeah.
you-
So I had the mermaid meetup at Maracas, and I actually advertised it for probably a couple weeks in advance. And nobody came.
But that's
So
that's okay if nobody shows up in person, because the live stream, of
yes,
course,
it's
is
always
something,
there.
right?
Yes.
So that's the point. You could do like a series, whether other people there or not. You could go to the beach, do a topic one day,
Mhm.
do a topic another day, and live stream them, and then create a series of videos that
Mhm.
you would have, that people could just look up at.
Yeah, I'm hoping to. That
Yeah.
is in my plans, but it's just to get people on board. That's the thing. I don't have any money, so I can't pay anyone to be with me to do these
Yeah.
things.
Okay, okay. Does anyone have questions or comments?
I'm seeing Leah put up her hand, so Leah, you can
Yeah,
go ahead.
go ahead. You could unmute, Leah, and ask a question, make a comment.
Leah, you're muted. If you want to type it in the chat. Okay, well, in the meantime, thank you all so much for being here, though. I'm seeing Christopher is unmuted. If you want to,
Yeah, hi Katrina. First,
hi.
thanks for all of the information so far. So I have a question for you that's not specific to Katrina, and this is because I know that you're very involved in the environment as a whole, and that's not very limited to your experience as Katrina. So that's why I'm giving you an open-ended question here. I just wanted to understand what you what difficulties you've experienced in educating about the ocean, or what challenges do you see specifically about educating about the ocean?
That's a great question. So, I think my biggest challenge is just accessing the actual people who are interested, because you either depend on parents, the schools, the teachers, and children aren't able to just access the internet in most households. Um, so that has been a challenge, just reaching my audience, because I know when I have been out, like for example, I did a book signing basically with one of the bookstores in a major mall. So this was after 3 years of trying to write the mall just for me to sit outside somewhere with the tail on. And children were just amazed. They were like, they didn't know that I existed. The parents didn't know I existed. Parents were actually afraid to bring the children across because they're like, who's this crazy person sitting down here with me tail? So I guess it's just getting over that first impression of like, what is this girl doing? What is this older girl doing? Because again, I've had the comment like, oh my gosh, you're too old to be doing this. You're a professional, you're not supposed to be doing this. So those are the kind of personal challenges that I face. In terms of the children understanding, actually, one of the scariest things is that they have the perception of their parents. And in a lot of cases, when the parents are not aware, the children, they're not aware. If the parents have a certain prejudice, the children have a certain prejudice. So it's overcoming those kinds of issues that has been the biggest challenge, I think, with the educating of the audience. I hope that answered the question.
Yeah, it does. Thanks.
Okay. So I see Ronald.
Hi, good morning, everyone.
Good
Good morning,
morning.
Desmond. Good morning, Katrina. Yeah, it's so of course, Katrina, I follow your work, and I'm quite a supporter, as you would know. But yeah, I mean, for me, it's the question is, what do we need to do? Because I myself find myself in that situation from a waste management perspective, trying to improve education, waste management education, and there's very little uptake because of the society we live in. It's so easy to get distracted by dancing on TikTok and that kind of frivolous activities. And you mentioned some of the things you tried already. So my question is, what else do we need to do? What is the next step? How do we get people to be involved? Even something as important as this, with just a handful of us, how do we get it out there and get people to be interested in those things?
Thank you so much, Ronald. Yes, and I really appreciate you being here as well. You're doing such amazing work throughout the region as well. So with regards to like waste management and stuff like that, the same way I think of the ocean, it's kind of like something that's by the way. They're like, oh, they're gonna just throw that stuff in the bin and it goes away and it disappears, and nobody realizes that there's a follow-on effect for every action that a human makes. There is a reaction to the environment. That's one of the things that I try to impart on the kids. And the next steps from like what I understand impacting our society right now is that we have to have that mixture of entertainment and education. But I think it's more that we're fighting each other for lots of different things that doesn't make sense. We have, for example, our electricity rates are increasing. People don't know how they're gonna get food on the table sometimes. There's unemployment. So in like the general public, from what I noticed, it's like, I think that what I'm doing is a good idea, but I stepped back and I thought, okay, how am I going to speak to someone who can't, see their way to the end of the day because they have so many different issues in dealing with their own needs and wants for their life? That is the Maslow hierarchy of needs. That is one of the things that I recently was like, this makes so much sense why nobody is buying my books, nobody is tuning into the shows. How am I making this relevant to them? And again, we can preach. Well, I feel like I'm preaching a lot. I talk a lot about the waste management, about the state of our landfills, and then we're seeing our governments just taking people from all over the world, where we have people who have the capacity right here, always saying we don't have the capacity in this country. We always have to outsource everything. The funding is not accessible for people like us. The approvals, because we're trying to do something so different to the status quo, to the normal everyday workings of our government system, of our social hierarchy. I can't tell you the solution that I have right now because I'm still feeling like I'm spinning top in mud because every time I try something new, it's the same situation that we're in. I don't know what the solution is. For myself, I thought that it was the education system because technically every child has to go through school, and the teachers are that, first point of contact other than your parents that is going to tell you something that is going to impact the rest of your life. So if the school system, if the education system is already in such a disarray, I don't know if it's not in the syllabus, if the children aren't allowed to interact with the information and understand it properly. I did have an idea that the Ministry of Education would just allow NGOs or some form of other interaction into the school spaces. But they're so close-minded to anything new. Everything just has to be according to the syllabus. If it's not according to the syllabus, we're not going to teach it in schools. It's not allowed in schools. That's what I have been getting. And we can hear from Leah because Leah is actually a teacher. And she has been breaking boundaries with her students because she knows the importance of not just learning in an academic way, rote learning. You have to experience it as well to understand it. So I don't know if that answered your question. I honestly, we could talk about that sometime because I have a few ideas, but they just have not been working.
Yep. Thanks. We definitely should talk. And I think one of the solutions is to multiply our efforts, to get more people involved, to get the small group that is already, doing stuff, persons like yourself and Sean and so forth, together, and try to multiply our efforts through a combined approach.
Exactly. A major thing I think as well is that we can't just be doing one day things like, in school, because we don't have the funding to do programs. We just have projects. We just like, okay, one day we can go into a school and do this. It's so much that we have to do into the programming. It's a lot more than just an instant of contact. We need real interaction, I think, to make people understand what it is we're doing. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Leah?
Hi, good morning, everyone.
Good morning,
I
Leah.
run a
Thanks
Katrina
so much.
development. Just to chime into what both Ronald and Katrina said, I think really and truly our country is very unique. That's the first thing. We're a very small island that operates on oil and natural gas. And because people have been so privileged for a number of years, we have been so comfortable. People don't see in the grand scheme of things, how energy efficiency is important, how our impact in terms of trash or waste, is also impacting on our daily lives. So I think our real issue is making that connection for them. And as Katrina said, I did this sailing on microplastics, and when we sat down, myself and a lecturer from UWI who did the research, it really boils down to that there are so many needs that people have met in terms of so many other pressing issues. Ocean literacy becomes to the bottom of that.
Interruption. Ganges Lena, Macintosh, of Homeland.
Yeah, exactly, Leah. I know. And Leah has done a lot of work in the marine system as well. So yeah, you go ahead. Don't worry. When you finish, you continue.
So with respect to ocean literacy, I am an ocean literacy advocate as well. But I have realized that ocean literacy is also a very new concept, and us pushing it. Well, it's been around, but like, you know, the UN and now getting into this decade of ocean science is fairly new, and we have not even conquered things like waste management in our country. So for me, I have stepped back in terms of, you know, trying to do my own thing, because I started an environmental group, and yes, I would still educate people. But as Ronald said, I think all these little environmental groups that we have, or people trying to make a difference, we all need to do like a PSA and get everybody together, and then we meet together like the government and create an NGO ministry, and then say, okay, you are going to deal with waste, you are going to deal with ocean literacy. And I think that is how we can make some impact. Otherwise, our efforts, we become frustrated in the process. And I feel Katrina's pain, because I've known how long we have worked together. We have been in the field from very young ages. We were under youth organization, and really and truly, it can become tiring and frustrating in Trinidad and Tobago, because, as Katrina says, the mindset of your family, that child who is not educated is being educated by a parent who doesn't know better. And because they are seeing it at home, they think it's okay, and the cycle continues. So I had a major epiphany this week that really and truly, most of our problem stems from our family structure in Trinidad. We have a major breakdown in society. Children don't know proper ways of just interacting. So if we don't have that down, you know, in terms of your garbage being clean, like every day I go into my classroom, I have to preach, but they know me by now, so they know, okay, Mrs. Coming, we have to clean our desk. I said, we just came out from the pandemic. You all heard about the importance of cleanliness. Why would you all revert to not sanitizing? You know, things like that. So it's something that we have to continue to remind them. And parents, a lot of it has to do with the adults. Our system, the parenting, they have a lot to play in the child, what the child reads. Reading is now a thing of the past. Like, so many children do not read. I see it in my class. They cannot spell properly, and it is because they are not reading. Just today I asked them, I said, okay, I gave you homework on relief. You see the word relief, you don't know it, and you don't get a dictionary. We had dictionaries in our time, you know. So it, for me, I think those are the things we need a greater influence on family structure. I don't know how we're gonna get families involved, get people involved. I was at a beach cleanup on Saturday, and an adult was telling me, yeah, she would litter. And I'm like, what? Like, you would willingly just litter? Where does that stem from? You know, for you to have that mindset. So I think, you know, I echo the same concerns as you and Ronald. And, you know, waste management, I just heard, Ronald, that I knew, but our landfills are at the point that it's so filled, and they're looking at Japan. And I also heard that IKEA is no longer a thing. So I'm like,
I actually just commented on that on social media, because yeah, I mean, you know, that's just a whole other story. But yeah, I mean, we don't need help. We just need to do the things that we know we need to do. You know, sorry for interrupting, but
no, that's okay. Yeah. So, you know, I'm keeping up, and I'm reading, and I'm like, instead of we going forward, we're going backwards. The beverage container bill hasn't been passed, and there's so many islands, and it's really because we are such a unique island in terms of oil and natural gas and privileges. And I speak to my students about the privileges that they have, and it's that sense of privilege that they feel that they can do anything, you know. And it's really hard, even in my school environment. And, you know, other teachers be like, I don't know how you do it, you know, how you get. I say, they have no choice. They have no choice. They're not doing it at home. They have to do it in my classroom.
So
And that's why I say teachers are so important. So one other thing I wanted to comment on first before I go on, Leah, when you were saying the like network of NGOs. So Christopher is actually the chairman of the Council of Presidents of the Environment. So that I've been volunteering with them since I was with CYN as a president. And it is basically the
Yes, I know
coalition of
COPE.
NGOs. And that is what we need. That I think COPE is like the future. If it is that we can get everybody on board in one voice, because we already have the government listening to us that way. I don't know, Christopher, if you wanted to tell anybody, but
I
let
think Desmond
Dr.
was
Murray
trying to
first.
say
Yeah.
something.
Yeah, that was what I was gonna be asking about is like, I know about COPE, I know about the Trinidad Naturalist Club, I know about Buku Reef Trust. All of these groups seem to be isolated, not working together, not doing stuff on a regular basis together. That could be part of the problem. Like there's a group in Tobago dealing with waste there. So part of what I see is to bring all these groups together and try to have joint. It doesn't mean that each group has to lose their identity.
Exactly.
Have joint things and talk about things and present proposals and policies to government, because together you will make a much greater impact than isolated. That's one. Number two, is there any interest anymore in Trinidad and Tobago on especially youth being involved with different competitions? For example, essay competitions, video competitions. Is there any interest in that?
I can speak to that. We have a lot, but here's what happened. Because all of these companies, they're the same ones that are in energy. So you have natural gas saying, let's do an environmental company. We have right now, I have land settlement agency talking about squatting. My thing, running a debate, running a quiz is only so much. What are you doing for the general public in terms of squatting? Like these children don't have, yes, you educate them, but they don't have any decision making in squatting right now. You have to deal with adults that are doing that. And yes, there are so many quizzes, but after that, what is the long-term impact? The long-term impact of it? There's none. Some of them do it because they have funding and they need to exhaust the money.
Okay, so maybe I don't understand the structure of what you call quizzes. I'm thinking of like nationwide competitions for students at different levels. They get something that's attractive in terms of like recognition, in terms of money. And if we do that every year consistently, that could have a long-term effect. We may not have the effect of the very next day, people will go clean up the beach or whatever, but over, long term, it will have an effect. And then we try to find, in addition to that, things that would generate like the short-term effect. So for example, I know there's a company called Connie Cycle, and she's also been part of this. So that's right. And that's part of sort of like the waste industry, sort of. So again, us coming together and doing things that are creative and relevant to people's lives, I think is part of the solution. But the basic idea is every single person that's in the environmental sphere, sustainability in Trinidad and Tobago should hook up with each other. Should definitely hook up with each other.
I agree. We do have quizzes, but what I'm saying, it's like a one-off thing.
Yeah,
So
always one.
some
Yeah.
agency would run
If
something, and then somebody else would send something, and somebody else would send something. And
Yeah.
it's really exhausting on teachers too, because every time you
exactly
send a
that.
quiz, it's time out of my syllabus. It takes money to go. They're not providing the transportation, they're not providing the training. I have to relay that information. I have to go and read up on land settlement laws. I have to read up on I was just green hydrogen, blue hydrogen. I have to learn that to relate it. So for me, the quizzes is definitely, if
Right,
you're doing it year by year and people training, fine. But 1, 2, I agree with COPE being the head, but COPE is very disjointed in itself, Katrina. While I was on the CY, I was on the COPE in that did
Well, we have Christopher, who's the new
I
chairman,
would love to
so
hear
he can
from
speak.
Christopher on that, but
Yeah.
unfortunately, folks, I do need to go to leave
Thank you so much
attend
for your
another meeting.
time.
But I think it's an important discussion that we do need to continue. So Katrina, if we can really do that,
Of
I'd
course,
really
yeah.
appreciate it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
So,
thanks
yeah,
everyone.
let's maybe do 5 minutes and wrap up.
okay.
So
Okay,
Christopher,
can we hear from
we haven't
Christopher?
heard from you.
Yeah. So what I do realize, part of the problem, not only with the public education part of it, is public education in general. So for COPE, for example, and I'll start there, is we are a network of environmental NGOs. We do meet regularly. We do influence a lot of policies very regularly. All of the different NGOs put forward different members to participate in different meetings, different committees, different policy, different legislation meetings, and so on. And this is things that we do on a weekly basis. And when I say weekly basis, it's not every single day that we're involved in a meeting, right? So this is things that we actually do regularly already. We do have partners in Tobago, as you said, Eric, EG, and now TAC, and they are actively involved in all of these things. Eric, especially so, being more involved in the ocean side of things. So these are things that we're already involved in. It's just one of the things that we have realized that we need to improve on is the public education aspect of it, and actually sharing with the public part of what we do, and also contributing to the educational aspect of it as to why it's important to do what we do. And it's very similarly for yourself and for Leah, for example, uh, it is also important to share the different aspects that we are involved in, because a lot of people don't know what COPE does and how in depth we are involved as partners working together towards these things. And like I said, we do meet regularly. We do have different committees, subcommittees. We do have different partners that work together in the different meetings. So it's not just one person attending a particular meeting. We do have 2, sometimes 3 people working together on different projects, which means when I say 2 or 3 different people, it's 2 or 3 different NGOs working together on these different committees at the same time. So the partnership is there, the involvement is there, and I think it's just a matter of growing from where we are at this point. And that is something that we are doing. So the education aspect of it is something that we just need to focus on, and sharing this with the public as well.
So could you say that you have members in COPE from almost every environmental, sustainability, waste, or, marine, whatever? Are they
Yeah,
all
we do.
represented?
Yes.
Okay, and so in terms of public education, what sort of things are you planning to do?
I think just thinking of how I can answer this diplomatically. So we do have a lot of plans in the pipeline as to how we're going to address the public education aspect of it. Katrina has also been very instrumental in this, so that's why I asked her the question as to what challenges she's been experiencing. So we have certain projects that are going to come about, and I can't really go into too much detail about the specifics of those projects just yet. But we are going to be educating people on different levels. One of them being the different aspects of what COPE is involved in. So we're going to bring awareness to the different aspects of what we think is important, what people should be focused on, and what people should be aware of, because there's a lot that happens in Trinidad that happens where people should be aware of it and they just aren't aware of it.
So
We want to.
let me ask this question, because what Leah was saying is that for these what she called quizzes, what I was thinking more in terms of competitions, if I had the resources and I said, okay, I'm gonna have a competition for Trinidad and Tobago youth from, let's say, 15 to 17, and the top prize of $10,000 will go to a student who makes, the best 2-minute video about waste management. How do you think that would work in Trinidad and Tobago?
I
It's
think it would
it's
be,
public.
yeah. So the thing is, in Trinidad and Tobago, for people to be involved in things, they always tend to want some sort of remuneration, some sort of prize, and some
$10,000.
sort of, yeah. So that is one thing that we have to consider to get the wider group of people involved in things. Otherwise, most of the times, I think a lot of people just don't know that these quizzes exist. They don't know that these competitions or these awareness campaigns are going on. And I think that is the biggest problem that we have, is getting the information out there, getting a lot more of the public partners, the news stations, television, radio, etc., to be involved and to share that these things are happening. Because people just do not know that they're going on. I think if people know that they're happening, they would be more willing to participate in it.
Okay. All right, well, we could have this discussion some more. We could talk about us getting together. And, or apart from just Environmental Fridays, venues, just us, that's right now in this discussion, getting together, maybe on Zoom or something, and continuing this discussion offline, because I think it's really important, especially for small island nations. The environment has to be something that the entire public is aware of. It's just essential for our survival. So anyway, I do appreciate this conversation. I do appreciate and want to thank again, especially our guest speaker today, Katrina Roberts. And I hope that we continue offline. And for example, next week, Friday, we will have a group of students from, I think, Atlanta area presenting some of their research projects dealing with environmental health, and so on. So that would be an example of how we could get students involved. Well, good weekend to everyone. Happy Friday, and we'll see you guys around. Take care, everyone. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you again so much. Bye-bye.
You're
Thank you.
welcome. Okay, bye-bye.